The Weekly starts now.
IKEA, the Swedish company that has built its reputation offering flat pack or ready-to-assemble furniture with funny-sounding names, has become a force in the American market. With its low cost, high design offerings in stores throughout the country, IKEA has solidified its brand with the American consumer. The company's furniture and accessories are popular among apartment renters, college students, and new home buyers, but its kitchen cabinets are also a hit with homeowners who are remodeling on a dime. Surprisingly, the cabinets have become popular among residential construction professionals as well. Today, architects, architectural designers, kitchen and bath designers, builders, and remodelers turn to IKEA when they are working with a tight budget or when they're looking for the modern European aesthetic for which IKEA is known. One such professional is Jillian Lear, a designer in Des Moines, Iowa.
We do residential, almost 100% residential remodeling, design, new construction design, and all the way through decorating, accessorizing, styling here in the Des Moines, Iowa metro, and also beyond.
Okay. And so obviously you've designed many kitchens as part of your work.
Yes.
How do you typically think about kitchen design and selecting materials for your kitchens?
Well, when I'm starting a kitchen design and looking at, there's two aspects of it. There's the function of it and there's the aesthetic of it. And the function of it largely drives what recommendations I will make on the material side to begin with. And then of course I'm going to pull aesthetics into it. I mean, we all want the kitchen to look beautiful and reflect the client's style and be appropriate to the architecture of the home. But I am a former engineer and I cannot get away from being largely function driven. So I'm very pragmatic in that way. I guess I would say the other thing that's going to drive the recommendations I make is going to be budget. And budget combined with the client's vision for how long they're going to stay in their home, as well as the home's relative market value. So, when I'm looking at specifying the cabinets, for example, I am not going to recommend, the highest end European built cabinetry for a home with a value that wouldn't support that or wouldn't make sense for that neighborhood. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Where do you think, or where have you seen IKEA or IKEA cabinets specifically crept into the discussion in relative to kitchen design?
Well, first of all, I love IKEA cabinets. So I've put them in 3 homes of my own now. And and the first one was in 2006. So 2 full remodels. And then our last house, we built a custom island out of IKEA cabinets. And in our current home, we need a kitchen remodel. And I am torn right now, but I am leaning heavily towards doing IKEA cabinets. And one of the reasons that I'll recommend the IKEA cabinets is if somebody is on a tight budget, but also if they have a tight space and we really need to get the most out of every square inch. So if we're on a tight budget and we have a tight space, I really love the frameless construction of the IKEA cabinets. And I feel like bang for your buck with the organizational features that they offer, you just can't get that frameless European style cabinetry with those organizational features at anything approaching a budget conscious price point in any other line. And if there is one, I would love to hear about it, but I haven't found it yet. So I really think it's a sweet spot. And I have put last year, I believe it was, well, actually 2019 now, I guess, I designed an IKEA kitchen for a home in the peninsula south of San Francisco. And I mean, that was $1 million plus house, maybe 2 there. I don't know. I mean, everything is kind of relative to where you live, but it wasn't an inexpensive home. It was in a very desirable neighborhood, and we used IKEA there, and it turned out awesome. I've done IKEA. I did an IKEA kitchen for my sister and brother-in-law who live in Fells Point in Baltimore in a historic townhome.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I've done them here in Des Moines several times. And like I said, I've done them for myself. And so um, I would say those two factors are part of what might lead me to doing an IKEA kitchen. But a lot of times people come to me and they're asking for them. I have recommended them when I feel like the client is open to it, but sometimes people seek me out just because they see that I have done them before too.
So what about those who say, and we've gotten the letters, we've gotten comments on our websites that no designer worth his or her salt would ever even consider using IKEA because the quality is poor. What do you say to that in terms of your experience?
Well, I believe when I first started using them and first put them in my own kitchen, they were solidly within the top 10 of Consumer Reports. So, as far as quality goes, they also have an extended warranty. And really, I think where people are getting hung up is that the boxes are made out of MDF versus plywood, but a lot of cabinets are made out of MDF versus plywood. And for me, I feel like what's much more important than the box, which never moves, and you don't really interact with it all, it's the hardware.
Right.
And the hardware is high-end European style hardware. You're just getting it at a ridiculously good price point. So you're getting, great hardware, soft close hinges, full extension, soft close drawer glides, and they're heavy duty. Not to mention that the drawer boxes now are metal, just like some of the other high-end European style cabinetry. So they're very durable. I think that part of the issue too might be operator error. So you have to put them together. And if you don't put them together properly and install them properly, then obviously they're not going to hold up as well as other cabinetry would. I think part of why contractors don't tend to like them, and I'm generalizing, but this is what I've heard, is aside from putting them together, they don't have as much leeway and flexibility with how they are installing them because they are frameless. The boxes do have a melamine coating on them. So you can't face nail them. You can't just do whatever you want and then go touch them up later. You have to be careful with them and follow the instructions and put them together and hang them on the wall the way they're meant to be done. And you really have to do that thoughtfully. And so I feel like part of this question of quality might be where the person installing them, whether it be the homeowner or contractor, isn't taking those things into consideration. But it would be the same consideration that I would have if I was doing, a very contemporary frameless style, high-end kitchen that had high gloss doors on it and, thermofoil frames that aren't wood, that are painted, or stained. You can't do that to those cabinets either. And so, or they're going to splinter and chip and everything. So, I feel like a little bit of open-mindedness is necessary. And I did do a kitchen here several years ago, and an older gentleman was the contractor, and it was his first IKEA kitchen. And after the job was finished, the client called me and she said, well, he really wants to meet you. And I was like, oh gosh, was he gonna give me a talking to about how this was such a miserable experience? And I would say he's in his 60s. And I met him at the house and he was like, I just want to tell you, I love doing these IKEA cabinets.
Yeah.
If you ever get another IKEA kitchen in town, call me, because they were so easy to hang and so easy to install and they look great. And I just loved it. And it was wonderful. And so now when I get an IKEA kitchen, I call him and I tell homeowners all the time, if you're going to hire somebody to do this and you're not doing it yourself, they have to go into this with a positive can-do attitude about the IKEA cabinets, because if they're negative about it from the beginning, don't even try to do it, because it could end up being a nightmare. So
IKEA cabinets have become so popular that whole industries have sprung up offering doors, drawer fronts, and accessories that work with the company's cabinet boxes. They include Coquina, Plikea, Semi-Handmade, Reform, Superfront, and Norse Interiors, among others. But not all professionals are fans of this low-cost cabinet option. One who's a staunch opponent of IKEA is Paul McAlery, president and senior designer of Mainline Kitchen just outside Philadelphia.
It's not very hard to find many different cabinet brands that are well constructed. IKEA is not one of them, but there's many brands to choose from, all that are good values and many that are far better made than IKEA and equal or less expensive and already come built so that you don't have to build them yourself.
Yeah. So if someone were to say to you, what are the hallmarks of a well-made cabinet box? What would those features include?
So there's two ways cabinets are made. Either cabinets will be framed, in which case they have a solid wood frame on the front. That's almost always 3/4 of an inch thick solid wood. It's usually 1.5 inches wide that frames the whole cabinet, goes around each individual drawer box. That's one. And then the sides of the cabinets are rabbeted into the front of that frame. And that frame actually holds most of the weight of the drawers, and the doors are all attached to that frame. And that's one way to make a cabinet. The way IKEA cabinets are made is called frameless construction.
Right. And
frameless construction started in Europe because wood is so much more expensive in Europe than it is in the United States. So in the United States, frame cabinets aren't more expensive than frame cabinets. But in Europe, they couldn't afford to make frame cabinets, so only very rich people getting incredibly expensive cabinetry would get frame cabinets in the past. So a frameless cabinet is simply a box that has no front to it, that just has an open front and then 4 sides, top, bottom, side, and the back. And so there's not really anything that's holding that cabinet square. If you were to push on it, if the back were to fail or anything else, the whole thing just flattens out. So in a frameless cabinet, because it has none of the stability of a frame cabinet, you've already taken a major step down in construction value. And because the hinges and the tracks and all the components are all attached to the side of the cabinet, suddenly the sides of the cabinets become much more important. And so what constitutes a well-made frameless cabinet? We would say always 3/4 of an inch thick plywood on the side would be certainly best in a frameless cabinet.
Yeah. Now, but I see expensive cabinetry coming out of Germany and some other places in Europe that are built exactly, as you said, where it's just a box, either made from melamine or MDF, sometimes metal. So how do those cabinetry hold up over time, considering a similar construction?
Not well would be the answer. Now, a metal cabinet would be totally different. And certainly the most expensive frameless cabinets from Europe, sometimes they could have a plywood core and particle board on the outside, but their cabinetry in general isn't made to last the amount of time that cabinetry in the United States is. And in Europe, if you're the Queen of England, you're not getting frameless cabinets, you're getting framed cabinets. So people that have a lot of money, if you go to the custom cabinet sites in Europe, they're all framed.
Yeah. So what do you make of this whole, the penetration and the influence of IKEA cabinets among designers and builders and architects?
There is none. That's the issue, is when you talk about among different professionals, you're not talking, you have to decide what's the professional kitchen design professional. Somebody, the definition really would be somebody that designs kitchens for other people for a living, that sells cabinetry, because if you're not selling cabinetry, like we carry 8 different brands, if your company isn't selling several different brands of cabinetry and you're not designing kitchens for 3 new customers a week, then you're an amateur. And if you're an amateur, you can be an individual real estate agent that flips 3 houses a year, in which case you're designing 3 kitchens a year. And, that would be the same amount of work or experience that a professional kitchen designer would get in 1 week. They'd be designing 3 kitchens or starting to design 3 kitchens, and they'd be selling the cabinetry and being involved in every single element of our industry. So your answer to your question is, there are no professionals that I know of that would recommend using IKEA. Everybody that uses it is an amateur. And so architects are amateur kitchen designers, because if they're not designing and selling cabinetry every day. So, if I do my taxes every year, that doesn't make me an accountant, right? It means I just did some taxes every year. An architect that designs a few kitchens every year for a few different customers, they'll come into a showroom at a kitchen place. Now they're ready to actually have a professional work with them, and they may have created some kind of hand drawing that they worked on with their customer, really stealing from their customer because they're not the expert, but they're doing these drawings that they're charging some amount of money for. And when they come to us, invariably, their designs look like, we might have done the first week that we started doing our job. Right? They're very amateurish. So there are no, if you're talking and even builders are not designers. So it's only people that don't know any better that are recommending IKEA, and nobody that I know of that's a professional.
Okay. So what do you make of, let's say you go to a big box store and you get the baseline cabinets made from, particle board, and it might have a face frame. It might be.
It's almost always going to have a face frame if you're at a big box store.
So what do you make about those products compared to IKEA? Is it the same value?
Not only are those products infinitely better, box stores actually have some very well-made cabinet lines, and you can upgrade them to different levels. And the people that are selling them to you are professional kitchen designers, even if they don't have very much experience. Because if they had a lot of experience, they would be getting paid more and be working for independent dealers. But even if they've just been doing it for a few years, and of course, there's kitchen designers I know of that have health issues or reasons that they work for a Home Depot or Lowe's, that they can't drive at night. Whatever the reasons are, they lost their job at the company they were working for because of the pandemic, so there are definitely very good kitchen designers. They're few and far between that work at home centers, but the products home centers sell are real cabinets, and they employ people that are real designers. There is no designer at IKEA. The person at IKEA that designs the kitchen is the homeowner, using very rudimentary software, possibly, if they used it. And that's really, because I sent you that link, right? Or I told you to look up that link. That means that everybody that's doing IKEA is the only evaluation they have on their own design is it's their own product, and there's a delusion associated with that.
But Jillian Laird disagrees, saying she's had enough experience with IKEA cabinets to know that the products are ideal in some situations. You just need to know how to work with them, she says.
It's like anything in life, I mean, if you haven't personally experienced it, then how can you really have an opinion on it, And so, I mean, my opinion comes from living with it in 3 kitchens, designing with it, probably a few dozen kitchens at this point, and specifying it, hearing back from my clients how much they love it, hearing like in that contractor's example, and I have had other contractors too say, yeah, this was great. It was so easy to install. We love doing it. So, to that end, I would just say you have to try it. And if you have a job where it makes sense, that's great. If you only work on, projects that are $2-3 million homes, of course not. Of course, we're not going to do an IKEA kitchen. But if somebody's trying to get a kitchen for under $60,000 and you've got a tight space and this is like the best solution, then why hesitate? Why say, oh, I'm just not going to do this job because I can't find a product that meets the budget price point, I think like for me, this is like my entry level type of product. And again, you're getting what you pay for. If you're going to do a whole kitchen, of cabinets for $6,000-7,000, of course they're not going to be the same quality as, custom built plywood cabinetry. Of course not. You have to like temper your expectations to what you're getting, but it doesn't mean that they're not an appropriate solution in many cases. And like I said, in our home, we'll probably end up doing IKEA boxes with custom fronts when we remodel. If I had to place a bet, I would say that I would bet on it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
All right.
All right,
All
bye-bye.
right. Thank you. Bye-bye.